We call ourselves the Elite.
If not us, who?
A little bit of the bubbly.
And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
This is an official declaration of war.
Change the world.
We are going to change the whole universe!
This is a family! This is a revolution! We can never stop!
We brought pro wrestling back!
All Elite Wrestling!
For the 66th time, it's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for the next chapter of the only professional wrestling podcast that is changing the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
What's up, dude?
If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Jonathan and I are two friends, fans, lovers of professional wrestling who are here every single Friday morning with all the latest news from All Elite Wrestling. Thanks to our EVPs, Chris Genro, Avoth, Joe Pacat, James Kennamer, Andrew Garrett, SMTM, Kevin Bartlett, and Jim Ross, and all of our supporters on Patreon. We have our hands on the throttle, and we are barreling towards Fyter Fest. The road is long and treacherous, but we can make it because we are flanked by the greatest community in pro wrestling who financially support the show via our Pay What You Want subscription service on Patreon. Subscribers get a ton of awesome perks within the community, as well as bonus episodes, access to show notes, movie nights, exclusive extended versions of each week's show, and getting to watch us record the show live. All of the money we make goes back into making this show better for all of you. It will always be free, but if you love what we do and you want to help us do more, please head to patreon.com/seeingtheelite and subscribe to help us bring this show to you every single week. T-shirts also available at seeingtheelite.com, but of course, as 2020 just keeps piling on situations for everybody to deal with together, we remind you, take care of yourselves first, take care of your family first, and then help out the show if you can. We greatly appreciate it. This is not a sports entertainment show, it's an entertaining sports show, supported by fans like you from all over the world on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars, just like Meltzer. It makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy.
Facebook.com/seeingtheelite, Twitter @seeingtheelite. If you really want to be in with the crew, in with our amazing community of super homies from all over the world who love AEW and love being a part of this incredible community that we have, tinyurl.com/seeingtheelite. Of course, overseen by our incredible champion, Billy. Join the crew, tinyurl.com/seeingtheelite. We're opening this week with a long quote, so saddle up. Because it's going to be a while. But it was so important to me to present this quote for a couple of reasons that we'll talk about, and I didn't want to cut anything out because it felt like I didn't really have the right to edit this man's words on this particular topic. Quote, "The events of the past 10 days have been alarming and disheartening. Alarming because we know the history of systemic inequality that brought us to this point, not only with the recent killing of George Floyd and other African Americans in our country, but also the disproportionate impact the coronavirus has wreaked in communities of color. Disheartening because this familiar sequence of killing followed by protests and civic unrest followed by inactivity and silence occurs ever more frequently in our nation. The video capturing the final moments of George Floyd's life offer the latest horrific evidence of injustice that is all too prevalent in the U.S. No families in this country should have to go to bed at night worrying about whether their children are going to encounter the wrong police officer in the wrong moment. No families should have to worry about their child losing their life just because of the color of their skin. Yet they do. That should never happen in what should be, and I still believe is, the greatest nation on the planet. I came to the United States from Pakistan in 1967 with $500 in my pocket and faith in the American dream. Opportunities to learn and succeed were abundant, and more than 50 years later, I am forever grateful and proud to be a citizen of the United States. Nonetheless, while I pursued my goals as a student and later in the workforce, being a Muslim American made me a frequent target of prejudice, discrimination, and hatred. I won't claim to know what it means to be a young African American today, but I can speak honestly and painfully about my own experiences as a person of color for the past 53 years in this country. Even recently, I have had people spew racist language in my presence when talking about other people of color, apparently ignorant of my ethnicity. Change for all people in the United States is long overdue, and it must happen now. I know change is possible, and here's one reason why. While I am often described as self-made, the truth is that I benefited tremendously from hundreds of good and generous people early on, from all walks of life, who supported me unconditionally and contributed mightily to my realization of the American dream. My classmates, professors, fraternity brothers, colleagues, friends, and family all helped to shape the person that I am today. Opportunity and some help along the way allow us all to do great things. I also know what impact economic opportunity can have on marginalized families. The most rewarding professional accomplishment of my life has been the recent opening of my company's automotive plants in the underserved areas of Chicago and Detroit. People in those areas only needed an opportunity and hope to break the relentless cycle of poverty and oppression. It is inspiring and why I am also committed, with the Jaguars, to investing in developments we envision for downtown Jacksonville, where new jobs will result in immediate and sustainable livelihoods. My overarching goal or mission is to do my part to level the playing field so everyone has the same access to opportunity to achieve the American dream without fear or compromise. As a member of the NFL family, I recognize I have a unique opportunity to address inequity wherever it is present, expand opportunity for all who seek it, and seek justice for all who deserve it. I take that responsibility seriously. In Jacksonville, I frequently meet with Jaguars players to better understand their experiences and concerns. I can only imagine their range of emotions today in the wake of all that has unfolded in 2020. I know they are hurting, yet also committed to doing good in Jacksonville and the communities where they were raised and will always consider home. Mindful of this, I will listen to the players in the days ahead with an exceptionally keen ear so we can work with them to make the transition from conversation to actionable plans in the name of lasting change. And I will do the same with employees and associates throughout my various businesses where the interests and concerns on this matter are no less vital. Racial discrimination has no place in our society. That's been said. But what's been done? We must have the answer today, and we will work with players, staff, and more to arrive at a timely response, because this moment, while agonizingly similar in many ways, is unlike any other in our history for underserved people and communities in the United States. We cannot attack the virus of racism with indifference or periodic attention. We cannot expect an easy cure or give up when the quest becomes inconvenient or uncomfortable. Most of all, we cannot fail our children who deserve to know that they have the same opportunity to earn a living, have a family, and live safely, no matter the color of their skin. Racism in all its forms will kill. It kills people, it kills community, it kills dreams, it kills hopes. For many Americans, now is the moment. Never has that been clearer. I don't want to waste this moment. End quote. That comes to us from Shad Khan. There were a couple of important reasons to read that. One, absolutely true, heartfelt statement and promise from a man who's kind of seen both sides of this issue, because when we talk about racism and class war are very deeply intertwined, right? And Shad is a person who grew up poor, had $500 when he came to the country, right, and worked his way up. So he's kind of seen both sides of the fence. And with his, like he says here, being a Muslim American, he's seen all of this stuff. And so he's in a unique opportunity to really say something. And I think what needs to be said most of all of Shad making this statement is he didn't have to say anything. And so many men like him are saying nothing. And he doesn't here.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything else from any other NFL owner.
Yeah. Of course, the other reason to quote Shad here is because Shad, he owns the company. I don't like he owns All Elite Wrestling, so it's not he definitely his feelings on the subject should be stated, but beautiful for him to come out and say something
and to be fair, he is very much a silent partner, but
Sure.
yes, he does own the company.
And so I felt like it was important to say here, although he talks a lot about the Jaguars, doesn't really say anything about AEW. Maybe it's not about AEW right now. Maybe it's about these other things too. And what a beautiful sentiment. And one that was obviously shared by Tony, shared on the content with some of the stuff that they did this week. So, but amazing, because again, for a change to happen, it doesn't just take people who are directly affected to say something. It takes everybody coming out and saying something and making how they feel about things known. So really wonderful to have that from him and from somebody in his position who owns a super yacht, right? So I was quite pleased to read through that this week, and quite pleased to share it with anyone who hasn't heard it. So let's talk about rankings as we go into the show, because the continued crimes of the ranking system, but where it kind of feels like they throw all these names on the floor and decide where they go from there. But man, it hasn't changed much. Let's talk about the tags division first. Young Bucks at number 5, Havoc/Sabian at number 4, Private Party at number 3, Natural Nightmares at number 2, Best Friends at number 1, Hang Mega in the championship title picture. I guess Dark Order have been moved out for the sake of Havoc and Sabian to have this match that they had this week.
Well, that, but also just realizing that it is an undetermined amount of time before Dark Order can return.
Doesn't seem to make a difference for Yuka, but
I think that's going to change this week with Big Swole having wrestled a match.
God, yeah, maybe, but it's got to be a rib at this point, right? It's got to be a fucking joke. I
think the entire company thinks that these are a joke.
Well, sure, but I got to move on to the women. The tags is what it is, but the women is the sore thumb this week, because Penelope Ford is at number 5 with a record of 3-3. Yuka Sakazaki is at number 4 with a record of 1-1.
Yeah.
How on earth?
Yeah.
Britt Baker at number 3, Chris Statlander at number 2, Nyla Rose at number 1, Hikaru Shida is the champion. And I don't think any of this will move this week. Maybe someone will pop up over Ford and Sakazaki, maybe at the bottom. But Nyla Rose won her match, so.
Well, I think it's going to be that Yuka falls off and Swole comes up into that space.
But Swole didn't win anything, did she?
But she had a match.
Huh. Losses put you on the board?
When the person whose position you're taking isn't allowed in the country?
I should hope so. But I've never seen anyone pop onto the board because of a loss, even if they had a match. I don't know. I should hope. I mean,
it's getting to the point that it's becoming pointless for us to talk about the rankings on this show. Like we talked about it when we first started doing the rankings of like, oh yeah, this is going to be kind of weird, and we may or may not continue talking about them.
Yeah.
And we're getting now fully into the point that there's no point in us talking about them because they make no goddamn sense.
Yeah, they don't really. So there's only 4 in the men's rankings now?
There's 5.
I
forgot the 5th.
Oh.
That's my bad.
But I agree.
It was basically just no changes from last week, but I will.
So here's the thing with the rankings. The rankings feel like they should be important, which is why they've continued to be on the show. But they're not. They're not. I don't know. People get at us on Twitter and on Discord and tell us if you want us to still talk about the rankings because they don't mean anything.
Yeah, and especially by the time that we talk about them, they're usually already outdated, which we had the problem before when they were releasing the rankings like on Fridays or whatever.
Right.
And now they're releasing them Wednesday morning. Like the time they should be releasing these is Thursday morning after Dynamite.
Yeah, I don't know why their timing is after dark and before Dynamite. That doesn't make any sense to me. But
if we actually get them.
Right.
The past few weeks, it's been a crapshoot on if we actually got them.
And so, yeah, I don't know why that is, but I guess we're reaching out to you guys. Do the rank, because every week we just come on here and we're like, what
garbage is this?
Who the fuck does these rankings? Because they don't make any sense and they don't really, I don't know if us getting on here and talking about the rankings, like it seems important. It seems like it's news. It seems like it's something we should talk about. But then we talk about them, and all it does is point out how many fucking holes there are in it.
Yeah, it just kind of pisses us off.
But the men's rankings, Darby Allin at number 5, Kenny Omega at number 4, Brody Lee at number 3, Lance Archer at number 2, MJF at number 1, and the TNT champion is Cody. World champion Jon Moxley. But even this,
it's harder to keep up with the rankings with Cody doing an open challenge.
Well, but the open challenge, the people they're picking on the open challenge have nothing to do with the rankings. The open challenge for next week is Mark Quinn, who hasn't wrestled a singles match ever. And then the person who's wrestling Jon Moxley next is fucking Cage, who isn't on the rankings at all. So it's
right, but that's what I'm saying is with Cody doing the TNT Open Challenge, the only thing it would have made sense with the rankings is if he just went down the list.
Right.
They're not doing that because there's no reason to. You need to save those big matches.
And because eventually you'll run through all 5 of them, and then if you don't have them drop in that 5, then
what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? You're just picking people below the list now at this point, right?
And then, but if you look at the top 5 of the rankings, saying they're just for Cody, that's 5 good matches.
Right.
MJF is going to be a hot match. Lance rematch is going to be great. Whenever he wrestles Brody will be great. Cody versus Kenny, that's never happened before, so that's going to be awesome. And every time Cody wrestles Darby, it's a great match every single time.
But he's not doing that.
Yeah.
Instead, it's, random people, which is what an open challenge should be. But
yes.
But it's, it's really weird. So I don't know. if you're a fan of this show, if you listen every week, get at me. Let me know what the deal is on Twitter or on Discord, and be like, hey guys, I really care about you doing the rankings or not doing the rankings. And let us know. Being the Elite number 206. The episode opens with Cutler entering the Elite dressing room. Inside are Hangman, the Bucks, Kenny, and Broken Matt Hardy. Cutler calls on the Bucks and Kenny for, quote, media, end quote, and they are, let's just say, less than enthusiastic. Kenny Omega's quote is, in fact, it's bad enough that I have to wrestle. Which I love. They ask for 5 minutes to get ready. Cutler obliges. He exits the room. He returns in 5 minutes to find that Matt, Kenny, and Nick are just covered in blood. And Nick Jackson, of course, says, New Jack got me. Oh, New Jack got me, which I thought was amazing. Hardy thinks that it was the Horsemen that came in and attacked them, right? Cutler...
No, that was Hangman just sitting in the corner and not giving a fuck.
Right, Hangman's like, oh, someone attacked them.
Yeah, I think it was the Horseman.
Cutler says he will find someone else for media, and then he exits. We then get the title card. After the titles, the boys are sort of showing and telling what they used to simulate the blood. Kenny used a ketchup packet. Nick used a Party City style bottle of, quote, vampire blood, right, end quote. And then they asked Matt what he used, and they notice his defensiveness. They notice how much more real his cut looks, and also he's acting kind of loopy, as if he's lost a lot of blood. And then they see the razor blade, and they all start freaking out. They're like, oh, you took it too far. That's when Hardy screams, you gigged? And Broken Matt Hardy then pauses the multiverse to give us the definition of gigged as Matt Jackson starts passing out from blood loss beneath him, which I thought was funny. Then the Bucks talk about how cool it was to tag with Matt and how exciting it is to see FTR make their triumphant debut, right? So
do you think they're going to do this match at Fyter Fest, or you think they're going to hold it to All Out?
I think they're going to hold this match till All Out.
They have to, right?
They have to. They have to do that on the big stage. I think they'll hold it till All Out. I think we'll start to see heat build between them for whatever reason before then, but I think this is an All Out match.
Yeah, I agree.
And a big one. I think it's a big All Out match, too.
Yeah, like this is not something that you could just waste on TV.
I don't know what they will do for Fyter Fest with these different teams, but I think...
I'm sure they have something they have something planned, but we know the two main events of the two nights, and we'll talk. I know we'll talk about that later, but I think they'll be sprinkling some other cool shit in.
Swole shows up to give us a public Swole announcement about not drinking Lysol. Big Swole is a national treasure. I think she's amazing. We then travel to
I love that.
She says, get your lives right or something like that at the end. So great.
It was like one sentence shy of just being like, y'all need Jesus.
We then travel to the female locker room to find the best friends who reportedly have an idea for being the Elite. At least that's what Cutler was told. But upon arrival, two things become very clear. First, Trent is just stupidly ripped right now. I don't know what he's doing, but the man looks like a particularly flattering image of a Henry Cavill right now. Just
Bro,
like
he's been hanging out with Cage.
Oh, okay. He's been doing the Cage diet.
And he's probably just been hanging out. He's probably getting those emails from Pac about how fucking angry he is and punching holes in the walls and shit.
The second thing that becomes clear is that they don't actually have an idea for being the Elite.
So here's my thing, though, is they don't have an idea at all for BTE, but their 3-minute segment was better than the past 6 weeks of Private Party.
That's the sad part. A bit about not having an idea for a bit is funnier just because the performers are genuinely funnier.
Especially like Orange Cassidy's thing where he goes in the shower and he comes back out and Chuck's like, don't fucking talk about Fast and the Furious. We're not doing it. And he comes out, he's like, so we're a family and we drink Coronas.
The Hybrid 2 shoot a vignette to talk about injustice that has been put upon them, which may be poor timing for that. And Helico says that there's no justification for them being left out of the inaugural tag team tournament, when in fact there very much was. They had the worst record in the league at the time without a single victory to their name, and adding them to the bracket would have made it lopsided. And
they were clearly short of teams to have a real full tournament.
Jack Evans then works back into his rhyming, pontificating, flowery language gimmick that he's been doing for a minute here, and tells us that he thinks the fact that the Dark Order and Jurassic Express are thought of as, quote, superior, end quote, tag teams by us, the fans, is proof of our general lack of intelligence. Which, okay, point taken, Next, Kenny has an idea to finally get back at Colt Cabana. He's going to punch him in his face. Kenny sees a guy down the hall dressed like Colt. He cocks back, he spins the man around, and it's Chris Harrington again. And Chris Harrington has the line of the fucking week. He says, "What the hell are you doing, Kenny? Were you going to punch me? You think you're a tough guy? You're going to come up and punch me in my face? I told you, Kenny, you do something like this again, and I will beat your ass for real. Come on, get a grip." I love
Harrington. Chris Harrington is just this uber badass now.
Chris Harrington's character on BTE, being a guy who knows he can kick Kenny Omega's ass, is so fucking funny. And Kenny's reaction to it, of course, sells it, that he just cowers at the sight of Chris Harrington.
I'm so sorry, Chris. I won't do it again. I'm sorry.
Kenny just full on cowering, and Chris Harrington even finds out that he was gonna hit Colt instead of him, and he's angry. He's like, "Don't!" I love it. The Harrington thing is so fucking funny to me.
I want more of this, and then Colt walking out behind him because they're friends now. That just made it even better.
We then go back to the best friends, who are standing around in the shower room to get ideas, still trying to think of something to do for BTE. Chuck pops into the shower because it'll help him think, and then he comes out.
It's his office.
Right, he comes out moments later with an idea. His idea is that he becomes a new sex symbol for AEW. Quote, "Girls and boys locker rooms, love me," end quote. He will then drive up to the barricade in a minivan, and everyone will go crazy when he gets out. And Trent doesn't really see the bit here for BTE anyway, and neither does Dustin. Now that he's said it aloud, neither does Chuck. I wrote him as Dustin here. Neither does Chuck.
I think because they were going in and out of kayfabe, and Trent was like, "Dustin, that doesn't make sense."
They do it all the time. They call each other Chuck and Trent, or they call themselves Greg and Dustin. And it's for note taking. In my head, I'm just like Dustin, because I just know them by two names now. Chuck goes back in the shower and pops back out instantly. He says, "Okay, John Moxley puts the belt on the line against me. You guys, distract the ref, distract the ref, distract the ref." Trent's response is, "This is a match." The timing on the idea is so funny, and you can tell they're just riffing off one another, which is awesome. And then Chuck is just like, "I got nothing." Trent comes up with an idea without going into the shower first, which bothers Orange Cassidy, that he breaks the routine. Trent's idea is the plot to the first Land Before Time movie.
Totally random, completely by all counts.
No,
I couldn't tell if it was like the Land Before Time or if he was making fun of Luchasaurus.
Could be both.
I think it was both.
Orange Cassidy goes in the shower. Chuck says that he knows that it's going to be Fast and the Furious. He goes, quote, "I drive a fast car and I have a family and I drink Corona." And then Cassidy comes out of the shower and he says, "I have a family and I drink Corona." I love that. I thought it was great.
Loved it so much. More of this.
Now we see Dustin Rhodes sit down with Benino Bodega. Dustin asks about Allie Benino says that the bunny likes carrots, not apples, and makes a very phallic gesture with his finger. And so Dustin says, oh, so she doesn't like QT. And Benino backs up. He says, I didn't say that, when it seems like that is what he said. Benino then says that he sees shattered dreams in Dustin's future. And Dustin gets mad and storms out after Benino not explaining what he means by that. He says, quote,
I mean, I could see Dustin getting mad.
I like Dustin saying, maybe I should dress up like a Christmas tree like I used to. And then we go, we pan back over to the table, and Benino is staring into Allie's eyes as they stare back and forth at each other kind of menacingly. So they're in cahoots in some way, which is
very fun way to move this gimmick along of what seems really stupid. They're making it very interesting.
Right. Next, we spend close to 3 minutes recapping Private Party's storyline over the past 6 weeks. It felt like fucking 5. I know that much, but man,
we could have done this 6 weeks ago.
I don't understand why they would. Do they ever recap shit on this show? Is that something that they do? It feels like it's not.
They're literally they told okay, so this is what it is. They told Private Party, hey, you want to be on BTE? That's cool. Come up with a segment. Just send us the videos. So they're playing the videos that they get sent, even though they make no goddamn sense.
I will say, lots of people have reached out to me and said that they enjoy these segments, and that's okay. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that somebody does, for God's sake. But
yeah, definitely not us. Like it would have like I said, if they'd done this one video 6 weeks ago, it would have been fine.
Yeah,
it's the whole broken narrative that didn't make sense because they didn't have a plan. The Hangman Page joke that wasn't funny and then got repeated 17 times because I guess Isaiah Cassidy, it made him laugh.
So the evidence that they didn't have a plan is even here as well. Like even in the latest chapter, it's kind of like, what's going on? To the point, so they start this out, right? And we get an extended version of the GTA scene from last week. And then we see Private Party returning to the same backyard, even though they ended the last episode being like, all right, we're going to leave. And then they don't go anywhere, which I get. Like, they can't go anywhere because they filmed this during the pandemic, right? But like also like, well, then don't write that you're going to leave. And then they come back
around the corner.
They come back with there's basically no payoff to the bear thing. Like the bear turns around and says, where to, private pussies? And then the next that we see them, they're like casually going back into the same backyard with no mention of the bear. Even Quen is like, why are we back here? Which is what the whole audience is asking. And then the bear leaps over the fence and kicks their asses. The bear, they pick up the bear for a doomsday device. The bear reverses and shoots Private Party with like machine gun laser eyes that he has. Then the boogeyman climbs the ladder. There's a doorbell ring at the gate. The boogeyman guy says that better not be EJ, right? Which I think is a joke about the boogeyman being EJ, if I had to guess. Switch Guy is back. He's returned. Switch Guy attacks the boogeyman, then gets caught as the bear leaps from the roof onto everyone and explodes, and then takes the $12, wins the match, and the credit rolls on $12, the movie that we've been watching for weeks.
And then weren't those two guys on Dark this week as well?
Yes. Now, I will say that was my favorite thing about any of this, is that I felt like when those two guys showed up, when Switch Guy, who we'll get to his name when I have it written later in the notes, and EJ showed up on Dark, and I was like, oh man, like I have a connection. I have a connection to these characters, and it feels like like I know these guys, and that feels better. And I had genuinely positive feelings about them. I didn't think that they were unfunny or whatever. So like it was cool to see them in the matches. That was maybe my favorite part about any of this, but I don't know, man. It's been rough, and I think recapping all of it really put a sour
Point.
taste in a lot of people's mouths, because that was the big thing that everybody put on Discord. It's like, why are they recapping this? Like, we know, we watched the show, and if you don't, like, that's kind of part of BTE is, like, if you start watching and a gag is happening and you're in the middle of it, you either go back and you go back further to find out what the genesis of that gag is, or you just you don't
care.
You don't get it and you move on. They don't really recap stuff because it's wasting everybody's time.
And when you're wasting like a quarter of your airtime on this,
it wasn't that much. And I'm honest, because I thought it was that long too. Because God knows it seems that long. It really wasn't that long. It was maybe the recap was maybe 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
The recap, no, I mean, yeah, but like the whole segment.
Oh yeah,
was like a quarter of the airtime of the episode.
Yeah.
And like on something that's really not making much sense at all.
Well, it's over now.
I don't know.
So
man.
I don't.
We hope.
I hope. Yeah. I don't know. It's maybe something I would have put out as a single video and not strung along on BTE over several weeks, because it's
maybe that's what made it feel worse.
It's so different than from BTE. It's got a whole different cast.
And that's the thing is, like, they do things in BTE that have a whole different cast as well, and they work fine.
Sure.
You know, SCU, they are pretty much in their own bubble doing their own thing.
Right.
Luchasaurus was doing his own thing. It had nothing to do with the rest of BTE.
That's right.
You know, there's been times, you know, we've seen things with Chuck and Trent where they're off and doing their own thing. So it's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be self-contained or tying to the Elite for it to work. It has to make sense.
In the final scene, Hangman enters the BTE dressing room as Matt Hardy talks about Abraham Lincoln. Hangman asks to speak to Kenny in private. He says, "Who is this guy?" Then he pulls in Matt and Nick. He says, "Who the hell is this guy?" And they're like, "That's Matt Hardy." And I love Hangman's reaction here. He says, "That's Matt Hardy? Every time I see him, he looks different." And I love that Hangman is kind of playing the guy that detractors might say that they think casual fans would be towards Matt Hardy's gimmick, right? They would just be like, "Who is this guy?" Right? But of course, nobody's actually like that in real life when they watch the show. And
I mean, I'm sure there are people who are like, "What the fuck? Who is this guy?" Because it is very strange.
But wrestling is no stranger to strange gimmicks.
No, not at all. I think it's more just like when Matt came up, you know, he appeared and it was up to such a big fanfare, and people were like, "Why is this a big deal? Who the fuck is this guy?"
Yeah.
So I get it.
I love Matt Jackson informs Hangman that Hardy has multiple personalities, and Hangman is like, "What? Like a medical thing?" Matt Jackson then, of course, tries to short story a very long story for Hangman. Damascus then introduces himself to the man that hangs. And he says, "No, my first name is Hangman." And Hardy then taps Hangman on the shoulder and becomes aware that Hangman is Ben Franklin reincarnated. Hangman then leaves, very creeped out by this whole thing, as Hardy returns to talking about Abraham Lincoln, which the rest of the Elite is just eating up as we end the episode. I thought BT had some great segments this week. I mean, really, give me Kenny and Harrington and the best friends all day.
Yeah, it was a better episode than we've seen the past couple weeks, but I think the private party stuff is still dragging it down, and hopefully that's at an end, because like they even said in the beginning of the thing, it was like, or I guess that was part of the recap. Like, yeah, man, it's been a long time since we've been on Instagram Live, and like, yeah, that was the stuff that really made you guys popular and funny.
Yeah, I thought that stuff was great. And if you know, there are definitely people at home who've been enjoying this stuff, and I'm super glad that that's the case. That people have been enjoying it. It's just, for me,
not for us.
I thought there were a lot of issues with it, man. Run Don't Walk, by the way, to Orange Cassidy on a shot of brandy, which was hilarious for a bunch of reasons. Not just hilarious for the normal reasons of like watching Brandy pretend that she knows how to cook and shit, while she's like doesn't know how to hold a knife and shit, But
Yeah, that's the Darby episode.
the Darby episode, oh man, watching Darby sit there and just like silently seethe as she clearly has no idea what she's doing. And he has a culinary school background, right? But even Orange Cassidy like taught her how to hold a knife in this episode. And her attitude was like, oh, yeah, people think it's adorable that I don't know how to cook. And it's like, I don't know, man. I think by the time you get to this many episodes in a show, you should kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And not be
be
like intentionally not learning things because you think it adds to the show, because it doesn't. But
it's very clear Brandy does,
people know
joke
she's
about
not
it.
a cook. People don't tune in to see her cook, really, which is why I don't understand why it's a cooking show. But
because they don't want to have a show of her just drinking.
I guess, but it was a blast, and the funniest part was there was a part with Alan Angels. Did you catch that? Alan Angels.
I haven't got to watch it too.
Alan Angels is sitting on a couch, and Orange makes a joke to him or whatever, and he's like, Alan, he's sitting on that couch. He's trying to get a job. So I thought was great. I thought that was hilarious. I love that.
Oh, that's fucked up. That's awesome.
AEW Dark, which I know you didn't manage to get to this week because of work being a nightmare. Of course, at this time, I can imagine that it would be. But I watched it for what it's worth. And
I saw the matches and I was a little bummed because when I saw the list, I was like, oh, there'll be some good matches. Like I watched I let halfway through the Billy Gunn match, and then I ended up having to turn it off because work came up.
Right.
And I don't know what your problem was. I was happy to see Mr. Ass. He was doing great from what I saw.
I don't have any problems written down here. I don't have any, but we'll see.
You were bitching in Discord.
Oh, of course, of course. This episode of AEW Dark was initially supposed to include Shawn Spears versus Clutch Adams, but the match was removed when it
that got bad real quick.
It came to light that Clutch Adams had some very stupid things written on his Twitter from years ago, and his match was immediately removed, and he was banned from future events. He said, quote, I am sitting here at my computer staring and trying to come up with the words that best describe how devastated and horrible I am feeling right now. The best that I can come up with is that I am truly sorry. I am sorrier than I have ever been about anything in my life. When I wrote those original tweets 7 years ago, I was a 19-year-old kid. I was trash-talking friends about a football game on Twitter. At that point in time, I was ignorant to the pain that those words would cause to people. In 2013, it was meant to be locker room trash talk that I felt was okay to use in that context. Now, I know differently. I was not a hateful person back then. I am not a hateful person today. I was stupid and ignorant, plain and simple, no excuses. Good, end quote. That comes to us from Clutch Adams. Good on Clutch Adams for not trying to make excuses, although he kind of tries to make excuses throughout the whole thing.
I don't. He does kind of try to make excuses. I don't really see it as excuses. He's explaining the time and the situation.
Sure.
It doesn't excuse anything by far.
Right.
So I have two thoughts of this. Is like, one, he's apologized. Actions do speak louder than words. So
right.
We'll see what comes of that. Second thing is, and this has been a problem with a lot of high profile directors and other people and just in the spotlight, is like when you become somewhat in the public eye, go check your fucking social media to see if you've said anything fucking stupid. And if you have, delete it.
Yeah, scrub everything. But even more than that, like, don't so this idea of locker room talk has been brought up for a long time. That's not a thing that's going to save you anymore.
No.
And there might have been a time where it was, but it's not going to anymore. So stop doing that on Twitter. And I didn't post what he said on Twitter because honestly, I couldn't fucking read it. Even the tame shit was like, whoa, dude. Okay.
Yeah, it was very far. It was very over the
rough.
line.
It was rough. A lot of not crossing the line on one front, crossing several lines on many fronts. And him being like, I had no idea that it could hurt people is like,
yeah,
really?
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, it was the kind of shit I when I was in high school playing football, I heard shit like this.
Sure.
I've heard shit like this playing fucking video games.
Oh, for sure.
I've heard a lot worse shit than that playing video games, to be honest with you.
Sure.
So like, I'm no stranger to it. It's very much terrible shit, and but you shouldn't say things like that in the first place. You shouldn't say things like, I don't think even in 2013 people realized how prevalent and how long-lasting social media really was and would be.
Absolutely.
And,
but but also
number one, don't say shit like
don't
this.
do that stuff or scrub it, but certain people are going to be made an example of in order for people to just stop doing this shit forever.
Yep.
Right? And it kind of sucks for him that it's stuff that he hasn't necessarily done recently and it was a really long time ago or whatever, but like, people aren't going to learn that you just straight up can't do this shit unless consequences are brought on people who have.
Yeah, and, this all came to light at a very, very bad time.
Oh, yeah. No, perhaps the worst of all times.
Yeah, and that could possibly be the reasoning for the length and the, what some consider the harshness of his punishment in this aspect.
Punishment came down swiftly, one might say.
Yes. And, it sucks, and he may be a really good talent down the road, but it is what it is, man. It's got to be a hard line to road. You can't be flexible on this.
Right.
And then something else that also popped up this week, I don't know if you saw it. Did you see that who Tony banned from all AEW events in perpetuity?
Oh, Linda?
And Hulk.
Yeah, but okay.
Okay, that was fucking hilarious.
No, it's funny, I guess, but it's also like, yeah, but like, okay, Hulk sucks. Like, Hulk was going to come anyway. The only reason he would come is if he thought someone was going to pay him.
Still being a big personality in the wrestling world.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's only shocking because the other guy hasn't done it, even though he should have a long time ago. Did when the heat was on him and then brought him back, even though a lot of people who should have been consulted were like, I'm not really comfortable with this. No, but you're going to do it anyway.
And publicly said so.
Right. But let's talk about AEW Dark. It opened with Billy Gunn versus John Skyler. My biggest issue with this match were the two issues that I've always brought up. One, I don't need to see Billy Gunn wrestle anymore. It's over. Two, so this issue with Dark, where Dark is literally just enhancement matches where the enhancement talent never wins over and over again every week. It's fine. And people in the last week we've had discussions with have brought me around to being like, I just got to kind of accept this show for what it is now because that's what it is. But
this is the point where things should have changed.
But even Billy fucking Gunn can't take a loss to one of these guys, a man whose record doesn't matter because he's literally here for the other things he does for this company and wrestles sometimes. Even he can't fucking lose to a guy.
He's the guy who is here as a coach, here as a producer.
Right, he's a coach
to help and just be a guiding force. He's wrestles when he needs to, usually in battle royales when they need a body,
right.
And he's really good in the battle royales. He's great for that role. He should have taken a loss here.
Of anybody in this company, he would have been a guy who would have been. He could have walked out of there after taking a loss to it. It would have made the show feel more impactful, although slightly, because again, I think he's so far below everybody else on the roster in terms of like the way people think about him as being a performer for this company, because everybody knows that he's not like a real performer for them, that I think even him taking a loss here would have been like, yeah, okay, he beat Billy Gunn, but like Billy Gunn doesn't even really work here in that capacity. But
yeah, come talk to me when you beat Austin.
come talk to me when you beat fucking Sunny Kiss or someone like that. Or,
Right,
yeah.
but like, I mean that's they could have had Billy lose. They could have made an angle out of it. They could have pushed Austin up, given Austin another match.
Yeah,
But no, that was really my big thing with after the Dark. After I saw how the matches went, and that's also like pushed me more. Like it's not really necessary that I watch this because I don't have time.
So and it was a fine match, and Billy does his 100-year-old thing, and it's fine and whatever. But it's like, man, like of anybody, like Billy could have taken a loss here, and he would have been absolutely fine, and the show would have been better for it, and it would have felt like there were stakes again, and it would have been good for John Schuyler or whoever they put him against. Like, it would have been great, but it didn't happen. John Cruz and Joe Alonzo versus the Butcher and the Blade. The Butcher and the Blade ended up winning this match via pinfall. It was fine. This match was fine. Joe Alonzo and John Cruz were a really interesting mix because Joe Alonzo, of course, his closeness with Sammy Guevara is a thing. And you can tell because a lot of the things that Sammy Guevara is good at personality-wise, Joe Alonzo is good at. You can tell that they've worked together as friends, right? John Cruz, a different animal. And so seeing them work together was kind of interesting, but it wasn't a difficult fight for the Butcher and the Blade.
Well, no, I mean, because those two guys, I mean, they're kind of been booked straight up as killers. So, still a bummer. John Cruz / Serpentico is on the losing side of things. He's a great talent, but
there's always time, I think, with these guys, and hopefully he signs on and stays on.
He's been in the crowd the past few weeks and at the pay-per-view, so
in
mask.
Christy Janes versus Kylan King. This was legit. Like, not even the 10 thing. This was legit jobber versus jobber. But I thought it was good, and I really like Christy Janes a whole lot. And it kind of seems like she's maybe a talent they're moving forward. We haven't heard if there's an official signing from her yet, but she seems like someone that they're pushing a little bit because she brings an international flavor that nobody else is really bringing to that division. So that's really cool. And she ended up winning over Kylan King by pinfall. Then we got EJ Lewis and Big Game Leroy, not to be confused with Nasty Leroy, versus Santana and Ortiz. And Santana and Ortiz, it was an enhancement match for Santana and Ortiz, of course, and Santana and Ortiz made quick work of it. And it was great to see them wrestle again because we haven't seen Santana or Ortiz really go at it for a while. And beyond that, it was really nice to see these like BTE characters come in and wrestle a match, even if Big Game Leroy's gimmick of like not wanting to put his switch down to play to wrestle, like we've all been there, but it's really kind of an interesting gimmick to throw in there because it's kind of part Orange Cassidy, part Nintendo. I don't know. It's weird. It's really weird. But it was cool seeing these guys that I know, and it did help me. It brought me into the match more, which is maybe the greatest thing I can say about that segment on BTE is that it made this one particular match more interesting for me because I was like, holy shit, it's EJ. He lives here. Right? This is my backyard.
Guys, I live here.
We then got the segment with QT. I know you didn't see this, so I'm going to describe this. QT shows...
So is this before or after the DDP thing?
So the DDP thing happens, did you watch the DDP thing?
No, I heard about it.
Okay, so the DDP thing happened where DDP basically like gifted his move to QT. And then QT shows up and that happened, and then QT shows up in this segment. He pulls up in this brand new sports car.
Oh, we're going full midlife crisis with
full
QT
midlife
Marshall.
crisis is the joke here. With Allie in the passenger seat, and he pulls up with He pulls up to Dustin Rhodes and Brandy, and Dustin almost outright says, "Do you honestly think that woman is interested in you? This new hair has gone to your head." And he says, I love that they're making it about the hair too. And he said,
I was just waiting for the hair plugs joke.
And he says, "What are you guys talking about? New hair, new me. New hair, new car, new me." Right? It's honestly best part of Dark this week. It was so fucking funny. And then we got Natural Nightmares versus Peter Avalon and Brandon Cutler, because Peter Avalon and Brandon Cutler had this little back and forth where they were like, "Oh, we're not going to team up again," but it was Leva's idea. Leva was like, "Last time you didn't have me, this time you have me. It's going to be different. Trust me." Then they go out there and they lose again. Of course.
Shocker.
To the Natural Nightmares. And this, kind of decent match, but like whatever. And
I really hope that this continues and we end up building up to a match of Brandon Cutler versus Peter Avalon, one of the highlights of All Out. Who will be the real loser?
Dude, it's gotta be the two of them. And I hope they give it the biggest stage reasonable to do it on. To figure out who's the worst wrestler in the company. Because they've been dancing around it for a long time. And I think they'll get there, and when they do, I think it'll be really funny.
It's gonna be, I think it'll be a very good competitive match too.
Yeah. Let's talk about Dynamite. This week's episode was a bit of a pre-taped treader episode filled to the brim with filler. I felt like.
So I know the decision to pre-record this episode was made a couple weeks ago. I think this ended up being the best decision considering world events right now.
Oh wow, yeah, don't even, bro. Oh. Jesus. Lord knows. They start taping this match last night, and a bunch of cops come in and fucking beat him with shit. God damn. It did begin really nicely, I thought, with a short video affirmation for the sort of Black Lives Movement support of AEW. Before moving into the recap, and what I really like about this is that they had the guts, which I don't think a lot of companies would have had the guts to do, where, like, a lot of them would have been like, "We see you, we support you," and they did that, right? But they put on the screen Black Lives Matter. Black screen, white lettering, they put it on the screen. And I felt like I really felt like while I was watching this, I was like, they're gonna dance around it. They're not actually gonna say the thing. Right? They're going to say, "Hey, we support you," but not so much that they're actually going to say the thing.
Yeah, but Tony gives zero fucks, man. We're going full down the path.
Yeah, kudos to AEW. They said the thing. They did the deal, right? So, which mad respect for that, because I think a lot of companies that have, especially working in entertainment, where they don't really know what their audience is, would have not gone ahead and said that, but they put it at the head of the show and said, like, if you're not down with this, then and if doing this makes you not watch the show anymore, then all right, fuck you.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's this one company that we're not in support of. Well, two companies, us as Seeing the Elite and AEW. We're not in support of any racist bullshit. Get the fuck out of here.
I like that Vicky has moved right next to MJF and Wardlow. I thought that was amazing.
So fucking thirsty,
and
too,
then
dude.
Opens with the super bad Death Squad versus Hangman and Kenny.
This match fucking blew.
Okay, so I'm glad somebody else had weird feelings about it, because I took special care to really watch this match again when I watched it for notes and focus, because it didn't really do much for me the first time, but some people in Discord really liked it. And when it finished, we're like, that's how you start a show or whatever. Really connected with some people. I love that it did. I thought that it didn't do much for me. The greatest part about it was seeing Hangman and Kenny work together again. Love that all the time. But
so my thoughts on the match were really, Hangman's very rusty.
I I don't know about that. I didn't really see enough to make that judgment for me personally, but if you felt that way.
I mean, he hasn't really had any real wrestling
Sure.
since February.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt Hangman was rusty, and I think that's why they did this tune-up title match.
Yeah.
Kip Sabian sucks. I mean, he's a decent wrestler, but
here's the thing with Kip.
Let's accept it. He's a jobber.
So I think that Jimmy Havoc should be commended. I think he should be commended. I do, because I think people don't understand how difficult it is to rise to the top of an industry, right? To become one of these AEW wrestlers when you have absolutely no natural talent whatsoever. It's really hard, and he's done that. It's impressive.
Yeah, so's Luther.
Fair, but Luther has powerful friends, you know.
I don't know what it is with Jimmy Havoc, dude. He started off in the company and he was fucking money. He started at Double or Nothing last year. He had a cool gimmick. Yeah, we bagged on him for being an emo guy, but he had a cool gimmick. He was a deathmatch guy. Yeah, he lived up to the deathmatch guy. He had some great matches through All Out. And I guess maybe it's we remember when we were doing the Road to Dynamite, the first episode, and we saw on the whiteboard on Jimmy Havoc standards and practices. I'm wondering if maybe they talked to him about that and no death matches and stuff, and it kind of broke his confidence.
I think it's just that he's been expected to actually wrestle
and not do death matches.
Well, I mean, sure, but I don't even know if his death matches would be that much more compelling, to be honest.
They may not. I don't know, but I know.
But they put him in these matches with Kip Sabian, and Kip Sabian, I think, is serviceable. Kip Sabian has always seemed absolutely serviceable to me. Absolutely.
He's a great mid-card talent.
Absolutely fine as wrestling. I think the biggest problem is that his character makes no sense. He calls himself Superbad. There's no rhyme or reason why he calls himself Superbad. He wears a jacket that's kind of cool.
He wears dumbass glasses.
But I feel like if I sat down with him and I was like, explain what your character is, I don't think he could do it, because I don't think that there is anything to explain. He's like a catchphrase, not a character, which is whatever, but it's not. That's the disconnect for me personally. It's not like with Havoc, where I feel like Havoc kind of does have a gimmick. He's a high school goth kid who grew up and never realized how fucking stupid that is. And so now he's like an adult who's like dressing in a trash bag and like wrestling and stuff. I think his issue isn't his character. His character is fine. I get it. He's like,
if he had come out in the suit that he had on at Double or Nothing, I would have been like, okay, cool. We're going down this route. That's cool.
Right. He's
not
like
back to the same shit.
He's like a dark guy, you know. He's like a dark, broody guy or whatever. Like that's easy. There are people like that, like real people who are just that insufferable, you know, in real life. So I get that. His issue is not the character. He's got the opposite issue to Kip, where I don't think he has any fucking idea what he's doing in the ring at all.
So here's the thing with Kip for me is like you're completely right. He is as far as character he's completely one-dimensional. He has nothing.
But he's good.
He's a great mid-card talent, but I think he tried to come up with this character of the guy he wanted to be when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But he's kind of too much of a nerd. I mean, being honest, he really is. His fucking finishing move is named after Harry Potter.
Right.
And it's just kind of turned into he wants to be this guy that he's always kind of dreamed about. He's got a hot girlfriend, just valid. He's pretty much turned into her valet at this point.
That should be his gimmick. My girlfriend's hot. Look at my hot girlfriend.
And it's kind of what it is, because every time you see Kip, he comes out in her shirts, not his.
I do feel like Kenny bent over backwards to make this thing awesome. And when Kenny and Hangman got the offensive, I thought it was cool. I don't think that the match made Kip and Havoc look good by proxy. If anything, I think it only kind of highlighted the sort of mile-wide skill gap between these two teams.
Yeah, they did everything they could, but
Hangman and Kenny end up winning the match with their double team, which they're now calling the Last Call.
I like it.
Which is it definitely seems like it's more of a name based on Hangman's gimmick than Kenny's, but maybe there's something I'm missing. But I do like it. It does feel very finishing move titly. But yeah, some people really like the match, and that's great. But Jimmy Havoc, I wait for Jimmy Havoc to pull out something that I think is really cool. And his idea of a big spot is like a fucking suplex. And it's like, what? This is like Sexy Star, but a dude? I don't know.
It's kind of weird though that they gave Hangman and Kenny like this kind of tune-up match.
Yeah.
When their next like actual scheduled match as a tag team is a month away.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of
because that's not going to decrease any of that, quote, ring rust at all.
No, I don't get it either. But, after the break, they show part of the promo from Tully Blanchard and Sean Spears, which, if people didn't see it on social media, popped up on social media on Monday, and it's like 2 minutes of Tully just like yelling in Sean Spears' face to get his fucking act together, which maybe they felt like he needed for his character. I really liked the promo. I felt like it did a lot more for Tully than it did for Spears. Spears looked like a child who just got yelled at by his dad.
Because he did.
Right. And I don't know if, as a viewer, that makes me feel anything for Sean Spears other than like, wow, like you're letting another grown man talk to you like this. But I don't know.
Well, it's kind of like this. With the way that they designed this promo,
yeah,
there was no way to get anything but make Tully look badass.
Right. And maybe that was the point, is to make Tully seem really cool, but I don't know.
Or just more like the legend that he is and not a joke old man.
Right.
I don't know. I'm with you. It seemed strange, but
yeah,
everything to do with Sean Spears has been strange for a while.
Shivani's awkward voiceover then takes us to a van with Tully, who says that the search for Spears is over, and then opens a small flight case to reveal a black fingerless glove, a single black fingerless glove. This is apparently a reference to an old gimmick used by Tully and Ted DiBiase and a number of others. But it's a deep, deep cut, man. And if you didn't know that, I feel like the segment came off as pretty stupid, because a lot of people in Discord were like, what?
It was very much something that was aimed at my dad. I haven't talked to him this week, but he would have gotten that off the bat because he's familiar with Tully Blanchard's gimmick.
Right.
Most people watching this show are not, because we did not grow up watching Tully Blanchard. We're all too young for that.
So I don't know if they were like expecting that to be a big hit with everybody, but of everybody in Discord, it wasn't till today, I think, when Genro posted like an article where someone was like, here's what that was, where everyone was like, oh, okay, because it didn't make sense before at all. And maybe that's on everybody else for not being educated in like gimmicks from 30 years ago or whatever, but
I guess, but still, it's still kind of weird.
Cage versus Sean Dean. Early in this match, as the Machine sets about murdering Sean Dean in the middle of the ring.
Worse than like anything Lance Archer has done to someone.
A graphic reveals that Fyter Fest 2020 will take the form of a 2-week Dynamite special event, much like Bash at the Beach, on July 1st and July 8th, respectively. I think this is a amazing idea. As we talked about last week when we talked about the possibility of this being the case, I think this is an awesome idea. Take a pay-per-view, split it up over 2 weeks, put it on TV, and now the decision to do Jericho versus Tyson is
on TV
is genius. Absolutely genius. Doing it on a pay-per-view, like whatever, you're kind of taking up pay-per-view time. The people who buy pay-per-views are wrestling fans.
Let's put this pay-per-view in quotes, because last year it was free and it was like $5 for international people.
Right. So I get people being upset about that, kind of, although not really. Here, I think it's genius. I think it's genius to have him do it on TV, because I think you'll get so many people coming over being like, what? Jericho's fighting Mike Tyson. Okay, I'll watch
on TV.
That.
Yeah, I think it's great. A great idea. I'm wondering if maybe even they had planned to do this originally, but I know they said that they were going to be in the UK to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They may have had a Saturday night pay-per-view thing planned. And I guess they probably had to, because otherwise it would have been tape delayed Dynamites.
Right.
And they've proven in the past, like, other than the pandemic stuff, they really don't like doing tape delay Dynamites because spoilers get out.
Sure. And because they don't draw as well. They don't draw as well. They don't do as many viewers. They didn't this week.
Well, I'm talking outside of pandemic.
Oh, okay. I mean, but even outside of pandemic, they don't. I mean, although
we've only had one other one, and that was on the boat.
Right, because it was on a boat.
Right, it would have been the same kind of thing to do UK episodes.
Sure.
So maybe they had a pay-per-view or something planned, but I think this works out pretty well. It's Bash at the Beach was a good success to me because it was an extra thing on top of it. It made Dynamite feel more special. I think that's what Blood and Guts was intended to be. It was supposed to be a special event on TV, which seems to be what they plan to do about midway between each pay-per-view.
Right.
And last year we had an actual event for Fyter Fest. This time we'll do it this way. It works out well.
I like it. I think it's a great idea, and I hope that they continue to have, like, they can do the 4 pay-per-views a year and then just do one of these kind of in the middle somewhere. Special events to make the Dynamite shows more special. And they were doing this before the pandemic. They kind of brought a stop to it in the early parts of the pandemic, and now they're doing it again. And it's a little bit of a sign that they're kind of getting back on track with what they were attempting to do before.
I think we're back on track of what plans were.
Mm-hmm.
They're just having to adjust due to roster issues, and that's perfectly valid.
So that's great. Cage throws Sean Dean around the ring for a few minutes and then pins him off of a drill claw. Taz then addresses Moxley directly through the camera and sort of reams him out for having an attitude last week during Taz's promo, for smiling and laughing during Taz's promo. So Moxley comes to the fucking ring to talk about it face to face, which I love. I love that he hears someone talking shit backstage, so he just goes out.
All right, let's do this.
Mox says that the reason he was smiling last week is because he likes the idea of fighting someone like Cage. Mox says he's not a machine. He's a human. He can be beat, but he believes that it would take Brian Cage, quote, all night long. It's happening. It's happening. I'm telling you right here. He said it. He said it would take him all night long.
They're not going to do a goddamn 2-hour match.
Dude, all night long. It's happening. I'm just telling you. Quote,
Okay, if it's going to be all night long, it will be tape delayed.
Quote, gentlemen, don't waste your time or mine trying to intimidate me, and the next time you say my name on TV, remember just who the hell you're talking about, end quote. Mox looked like a fucking badass as he got out of the ring. Never mind the height disparity was somewhat apparent between him and Cage, but the girth disparity between him and Cage was also rather apparent.
Massive. I did see something on Twitter this morning. Taz was responding to somebody who asked him how did it feel to be doing promos on TV again, and his quote back was, "It feels so good to be on TV and not have a stupid script to memorize or someone yelling at you in your ear."
Yeah. Mox just walks out of there looking like a fucking boss. It's awesome. After commercial, Alex Marvez finds Jake Roberts and Lance Archer outside of the Daily's Place parking lot, beating up on a guy in a luchador mask. Archer then takes this opportunity to show us why they don't have him cut his own promos. He says that the loss means nothing to him, and he is still on a mission to see to it that everybody dies, right? That's his thing, which he says into the camera in a what I'm sure he thought was a menacing tone. Kind of sad that we don't hear from Jake here, who was the one to target Cody from the get-go. And then
he kind of just was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Alex, that you had to see that. And it was like, all this segment really did was it pointed out two things. One, Lance Archer shouldn't talk.
Right.
And number two, Marvez is awkward at doing anything.
Yeah, well, yes. But
like this, like truly pointed out, like you can't even go out and interview people, right?
But it seemed like I just really wish he had interviewed Jake, because Jake's done all the talking up until this point. It almost seemed like it was a feud between Jake and Cody and not Lance and Cody. And then he's not the person we talked to after the match to be like, hey, you came into this company and specifically targeted this guy and said that Lance was going to kill him, and then Lance didn't. How are you feeling now? That's what I want to know. I don't give a fuck what Lance Archer thinks. I don't even know this guy. I've never even heard from him before in my life. It's all been Jake, so I don't understand why Jake wasn't the person to talk to. But, it was fine for what it was. It was just like, oh, man, kind of seems like the payoff should have come from Jake, who's the only person we've been talking to this whole time. But, I thought the private party segment that followed this, though, was awesome. Two of them together in a bar somewhere in Daly's, the same one where the $12 incident happened, commiserating about the recent loss from last week when Matt Hardy enters. Matt says that he enjoyed the match last week, and he thinks that they're the future of AEW Tag Wrestling. He says the bond between the two of them reminds him of the bond that he shares with his brother. Private Party, of course, over the moon about all of this. For those that don't know, a mutual love of Jeff Hardy's career was the initial common ground that Cassidy and Quen discussed upon first meeting that led them to being friends. And so this was a big moment for them, and was maybe something that they should have mentioned in this, because it's kind of just backstory that you would have to know why they cared so much about Matt Hardy. But Matt says if he can ever do anything to help, he'd be happy to. And of course, Cassidy has an idea. He says, Matt, Private Party, Hardy Party. I don't understand how you get so close to Party Hardy and miss, but they decided instead it's Hardy Party.
Because they're putting Matt first.
Yes, he always goes first, I guess. Matt likes it. Private Party, of course, mark out big time as Matt exits. And Matt passes Sammy Guevara in the hall on his scooter. There's a moment of tension. And then Matt Hardy says, Sammy, we're cool, man. Respect. And walks on, which is so funny. Sammy is just confused as Hardy exits.
Confused and scared. I loved it. So bro, I think he's going to be terrified of you for a while. You ran him over twice with a golf cart.
We then get a recap of the lead up to Cody versus Jungle Boy. And then we get a recap of Jericho versus Tyson. And then we get the Chris Jericho versus Colt Cabana match.
They had to explain this one.
Yeah, so the reasoning for this match is that Colt was the first person to hold Jericho back last week in the pull apart with Tyson, and Jericho feels like he would have gotten to hit Tyson if Colt hadn't gotten in the way, which basically Colt stopped him from signing his own death warrant. But
I mean, it's pure Jericho logic, and I love Jericho logic.
Jesus Christ, Sammy Guevara is so off time singing to Jericho's theme.
Fucking tone deaf.
Oh
dude.
my god, I don't know how anyone can sing this badly. Even if you were trying, he was literally, his delay on the words was more than 2 or 3 seconds.
And then he was skipping words because he doesn't know them.
It was rough, man. QT and Allie are holding each other at ringside during this match, and they make a point to shoot it to it. I thought the match was okay. I thought that was about it. It's pretty one-sided. Jericho wins with the Judas effect. He then tells the crowd to shut their ass and says that he's going to do the same thing to, quote, that piece of shit, end quote, Mike Tyson. Interesting. I watched the movie about Mike Tyson on HBO Max. That Spike Lee did, I think, the Tyson movie that came out, and worth watching on HBO Max if you want to know more about Mike Tyson. Man, some crazy life and times for that guy.
Yeah, no shit. So here's my question.
What?
It may not have been in this segment. It may have been later. I can't remember. Everything blurs together right now. It's been a long week. We said shit twice. Jericho said, shut your ass.
Yeah.
and then he said ass somewhere else, and they bleeped that.
Yeah, maybe. Did they bleep an ass?
Because
ass is like you can say ass on The Simpsons. So
yeah, that's what we were talking about in Discord, and he's like, they said shit twice, and he's already said shut your ass because that's his gimmick now.
Right.
I'm so down for that. But yeah, they bleeped ass out later, and I was like, what? Why?
I didn't notice it personally, but I'm not saying it didn't happen. He says he's gonna taste the blood of Mike Tyson when he shoves Mike's head up his stupid ass.
That's one. That's the one they bleeped out.
Weird.
But you may not have got it bleeped on Fight.
Yeah, Fight might not have had it bleeped. It might have been a TNT thing. He says, quote, "That's why I'm calling out the baddest man on the planet. Come on, where's the baddest man on the planet?" And then out comes Orange Cassidy.
Which is amazing. Just the perfect thing.
So perfect. Whoever thought of that? Amazing, funny idea. He then tucks Jericho's hands into his belt and then dodges a quick attack from Hager and rolls out to the relative safety of his fellow best friends. We then weirdly spend 2 minutes recapping the episode we've been watching all night, including stuff that we watched mere minutes ago, which felt very Monday Night Raw and very weird, especially because we weren't anywhere near the end of the episode.
No, I think what happened, and I talked about this in Discord. My assumption is that the matches in the episode of Dynamite that they filmed
right
as they were cutting it and putting it together, they realized, oh shit, we had to cut some stuff out of this match that wasn't good TV quality, and now the episode's short.
Huh. Yeah, maybe, but even then it feels really weird to put the recap where they did.
I'm no arguments there. Just that's my assumption.
We got the awesome Britt Baker segment that I felt was maybe the best thing she's ever done, where she's sort of like doing exercises from her wheelchair.
It was like the Rocky montage.
Right, the Rocky montage, but she's in this wheelchair the whole time, and she's having people do stuff for her, almost like the Cool Run. You remember the Cool Runnings montage where like Sanka's getting like lifted up to do the pull-ups and shit like that? It was like that,
yeah.
Only in a wheelchair.
It was.
Yeah. I thought that was really funny. It was maybe, again, the best thing she's done in a while, at the very least. Certainly the best thing she did all week. We then got Big Swole versus Nyla Rose, which I really liked this match a whole lot.
Love this match.
I think that these two work really well together, and it was maybe my favorite match of the show. And it's sad that she lost, and it probably won't help put Swole on the rankings, unfortunately. But Nyla's win is interesting here. She wins with a move that is like halfway between a spine buster and a sit-out powerbomb. It looks pretty cool, and maybe she'll be keeping that as some sort of finisher in the future. Maybe replacing the Beast Bomb, although I don't know. I think it looks cooler than the Beast Bomb. I think it's a weird thing to do in addition to the Beast Bomb because it's so close. Big Swole gets interviewed at ringside after the match, which is a really cool place to do the interviews. I wish they'd do them more there. Then Britt Baker, who is sat in the back of a weird ATV truck, slams into the barricade and tries to start shit, even though she can't wrestle right now because she's in the wheelchair and won't be able to wrestle till at least All Out. Weird for her.
If we're lucky.
Weird for her to be in a TV program. And like Britt Baker is whatever. Like even if I loved her as a wrestler, like I feel like having her continue to do angles on TV when she can't wrestle and doesn't have a heater who can wrestle, I don't think she's such a huge star for them that she needs to be there every week taking away TV time from people who could use it. I don't understand the idea of having her here every week to put her in a program that they can't pay off until at least All Out. That's wild to me.
Well, so my thoughts on this, I agree as well. Why don't they have her? I mean, maybe it's just that Rebel doesn't want to wrestle anymore.
Right.
But why don't they turn this into an angle for Rebel?
Or somebody else.
Well, there's no one else that really gives a shit about Britt Baker who's not dead. we can't raise the dead yet because, contract.
Sure. I know. Yeah, it's just it all seems. I don't know. They're all aboard the Britt Baker train, and that's cool, man. I guess, but you can't pay it off for so long. Like why? Big Swole threatens Britt Baker with a chair and chases her out, and that's kind of the end of it. That Britt Baker asks Rebel to drive the ATV away, and they drive away, and that's it for the segment. So I guess Big Swole versus Britt Baker exchanging harsh words on TV time for the next 6 weeks, at least. Next, Tony Schiavone asks Darby what he thinks of all this Taz stuff, whether his injury at the hands of Cage is due to the previous interactions with Taz. Darby's response is, life's one big joke. However, Cage, I'll get the last laugh, end quote. Joker gimmick coming for Darby Allin? It feels like it is. I don't know.
I'd be down for this. I'm also kind of afraid of Cage and Darby getting into a match together because.
Tony Schiavone now interviews FTR. FTR says that their name stands for.
Fucking love this.
The name FTR stands for whatever they like at the time. Basically, right now it's for the Revolution, because they're at AEW where the Revolution is happening. They say they're down to work with all of AEW's tag team except the Young Bucks, whose absence on their list of tag teams they want to work with is conspicuous. When confronted about this, Cash Wheeler says they don't want to work with the Bucks. They want to hurt the Bucks. They say that they didn't attack the Young Bucks when they debuted because they want the Young Bucks to be at 100% when that moment finally happens, so that there's no question when FTR goes over. Schiavone ends the interview. He says, thank you, guys. Then he stands up and he said, all this time, I thought FTR was fuck the Revival. And, of course, they bleep it out because they can't say any of it. And they all laugh about it. They're like, oh, yeah. And then here comes Butcher and the Blade for a pull apart.
What would have been made this part better is if they bleeped out fuck and Revival and just left the in the middle.
I think, maybe they could have done that. I think the Revival is trademarked, so I think you would have to bleep the whole thing, but maybe not.
Yeah, you can't trademark the word the.
Oh, fair. But can you trademark it in conjunction with another word? I don't know.
Probably yes, but it's,
Here come the Butcher and the Blade. They set a match for next week after a pull apart. It looks like FTR are sticking with this snowflakey old wrestling dude heels thing, because they talk about Lucha Brothers and they're like, we're going to teach you how to actually tag team wrestle. That is by tagging and stuff like that. It's like, okay, you guys are really cool. But they're heels. They're working me. I get it. But they're going to do this
working
gimmick.
You good, man.
And I think it's the best thing for them to stick with this gimmick because then it really feels like they're coming right over from NXT as opposed to being repackaged or whatever. It feels like Invasion, right? So, like, I think it's the best call, even if I fucking hate this gimmick. But
I see, that's the funny thing. Like, when we talked about this last week, it's like, I don't know why you're stoked on them. You're going to fucking hate these guys.
But I think they're great at the gimmick, and I think they're exceptional wrestlers. Next week, Cabana versus Sammy Guevara, Mark Quinn versus Cody, FTR versus Butcher and Blade, Santana Ortiz and Hager versus Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. That'll be an awesome match. Jon Moxley will, for the first time as champion, be wrestling on AEW Dark next week, which will be interesting to see. He'll probably be pinning Sean Dean in 5 minutes or whatever, but he'll be on there.
2 minutes.
Cole.
So there was one thing that does get mentioned later in the Cody match is they mentioned repetitively on commentary that Cody was going to be wrestling Phoenix.
Yeah.
And then it did come out that was the original plan when they recorded this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix was not ready to do to wrestle this coming week.
Oh,
because
so still out.
he fucked himself up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, he'll get a shot at some point in the future, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think we'll ever really hurt for any challengers to Cody's belt.
Colt has this interview with Marvez where he seems really upset that he can't seem to stack wins here in AEW. That's when the leader of the Dark Order, Brody Lee, comes in and hands him a card and says, losses affect us all. And then he exits, and Colt, they ask him about it, and he's like, well, I'm definitely not interested in that. But like, you can see that he's really thinking about it due to his frustration here. So it'll be interesting to see if he goes there, especially with the way that he was brought in. He was brought in to fight against the Dark Order initially. That was his opening angle with SCU, and now he's considering joining them, which is
he's losing, man. He's got to do what he can to win, because Cole's kind of just an asshole.
He's got a career to think about,
Yeah.
We
promising the W's. You got to follow the W's.
We are treated to another recap for Jungle Boy and Cody, and the rather small story surrounding it before the match, which we get next to close the show as the main. I thought this match was pretty good. I don't know that it should have main evented. I didn't feel like there was really any heat on it at all. I thought they did a great job.
It's going to be very hard to get heat on these matches.
I think they tried with the blood, but how did you feel about the blood? Because I know it was divisive with people.
I was very much the whole thing of, hey, cool, Cody's turning into Ric Flair. That's how I felt about it, and it was whatever. I didn't mind it. I didn't think it helped anything.
So my thing about it is I don't think I think the execution of the blood was pretty bad.
Bro, that's been like most of Cody's spots gigging.
Most of Cody's gig spots are pretty bad. Like, they cut back and you're like, oh, okay, that's why they didn't show you for 5 minutes. Is so you could gig.
Because it was so bad at All Out when he had to lay on the ground for 10 minutes because I guess he didn't cut himself properly or he lost the blade or whatever.
I don't know what it is, but all of his gig points are like the camera very obviously cuts away and then obviously cuts back, and it's like, oh, he's bleeding.
And then it's just like, oh god.
Right, it's not. I don't know why he's like the one wrestler where that's always the case, where it's like, I don't know, like the illusion works if it's done quick.
It's got to be done quick,
and he doesn't do it quick at all.
You've got to hit the turnbuckle or the post, roll down, lay down, do it, and pop back up.
And he doesn't.
You can't be on the ground for 5 minutes because you can't get the razor blade to go across your head because it's hurting.
He hits his head on the stage, and then they cut to Jungle Boy having this whole argument with MJF that takes a long time. And then
Which was great, though.
That was cool. And then they cut back to Cody, and he's like, oh, my head. It's like, okay, dude. I don't know if you can make it more obvious, but, it's whatever. The thing with Cody is I don't think the blood added anything, but I'm also not a person who thinks it necessarily takes away to have blood, especially to have blood on television. It does at this point. It happens so often in just Cody's matches that's
kind of the issue.
That it makes it seem like how come Chuck never bleeds? How come Kenny Omega gets kicked in the face and doesn't bleed?
Or Jericho?
Right?
Or
does Cody just have like super thin skin?
That's kind of been my issue with it, is like that it's only Cody and it's always Cody.
Mm-hmm.
And like this one was the first time when it's like, okay, this is out of place.
Right. Yeah, I felt like it was really weird because I don't think it added anything to a match that was like, it was a no heat babyface versus babyface match in the main event on Dynamite for the title. Yeah. I don't think adding blood added anything to the story. I think blood can and usually does add a lot to the story. I don't think it did here. For what that's worth. So, a lot of people were kind of either way on the blood, and I'm down with blood when
I don't
works.
I don't
but
mind blood, but it's
I don't think it did anything here. But just not doing anything is fine for me. I don't think it took away from it. It was kind of funny the way that they did it, but.
and that's not really the look that you want, though.
No, it's not. I feel like the match never felt huge, like it seems they wanted it to, but I'm not sure that a TV title match should either. The crash through the table I thought was kind of rad. Cody ends up winning the match off of a crossroads, and
yeah, I was reading this morning. This is a match that Jungle Boy has wanted for a long time, because he sees this as a pivotal point in his career, because he's a big fan of Cody, and Cody's one of the guys he grew up watching.
Right.
I kind of think they did this match a little too early in Jungle Boy's career, because I think Jungle Boy, he's a great talent. He's very talented. He's got so much potential. He's still a little bit too green to work with Cody's style.
Maybe. I don't know. He had one of the best matches of the night at the last pay-per-view. I think it's more that there wasn't really anything to it story-wise at all. They were just having a match to have a match, and I feel like that's kind of a waste. But
yeah, you can't. You have to have a storyline, and they weren't able to put a storyline because, again, like you said, they're both baby faces, and it resulted in Cody working heel, which he's good at working heel, but until it's an actual heel turn, it's just, okay, you had to do this because you needed a good guy and a bad guy.
But I think that they also need to understand, because they made such an effort to show us the story over and over again. I think they also need to understand the thing with an open challenge is that you're not really going to have that every week. You're not going to have a story. People are just going to come out because that's what they do. And it's weird that they've been sort of announcing this ahead of time, like Mark Quinn doing next week. They're like, that's who it's going to be, instead of doing an open challenge where Cody comes out and we don't know who's coming out. Which is
the thing that really made Cena's run so good,
right?
Because he would walk out, everybody in the back knew what was going to happen, but everybody in the crowd and that's what was at the time driving people to be at Raw, because Cena was on TV every Monday night, gonna have a match with somebody you didn't know who. Could have been fucking The Rock for all you knew,
right? I thought, and so both posses fill the ring as we go off air, and that's the end of the thing. So, but I'm looking forward. I don't know if they're gonna have the TNT title be the main every week. I would not think that's the way that they're gonna go. But I would hope in the future that they kind of dial down all of the talking about it and just have it be a surprise. That's what I would like it to be, but I don't know if that's what they're gonna do, because I don't know if having advertising that Mark Quinn's going to do it ahead of time is going to draw in more viewers than just surprising people with Mark Quinn would, but who knows. AEW did 730,000 viewers. NXT did 715. That's ostensibly a tie. And a pretty big drop for AEW, over 100,000 viewers. I think they were at 850 last week or something like that. So, but let's just say within the key demographic of AEW, it's been a week with a lot of other stuff going on. So, it doesn't surprise me that people weren't tuning in to see a Dynamite that everybody knew was taped. I didn't know it was taped. Fair. But I'm not surprised in the drop in the ratings, but hopefully we'll start to see the rebound as we head into Fyter Fest. But it all depends on what they build,
That's kind of going to be the thing, is if they're going to do the taped episodes and they want to maintain the ratings, they're going to have to do a better job of hiding it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at the flip side of this is, from what we've heard, even still, is AEW is still doing gangbusters in the ratings as far as the executives are concerned.
Sure. No, it's nothing that I'm worried about them at all. 730K for what they were expecting is still pretty good. And I'm not worried about it, especially I feel like everyone's kind of getting a pass ratings-wise in the current climate, but...
Yeah, and we've continued hearing that Double or Nothing did amazing buy rates for what everyone was anticipating. They blew expectations out of the water, giving the
what I heard and it's not gospel because we don't have real numbers and we probably never will, is that they did more than they've done with any pay-per-view ever.
Yep, that's what I heard as well. This Double or Nothing it did better than last year's Double or Nothing, which was the benchmark.
So good for them.
Yep.
And I get it because people who would have normally had parties couldn't have parties now. And so anecdotally within my own life, friends that would have come over here, some of them ended up buying the pay-per-view on their own and watching at home because they had to, because they couldn't come over here. So
yeah, I think it's that, but I think AEW was expecting, okay, we'll have the same numbers that we've been having of people having parties, but because those people will probably still buy,
right?
But let's not expect on people of those people buying because they're probably splitting this with their friends or something like that.
Sure. But good for them to pop up over those numbers. That's wonderful. YouTube,
yeah.
iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars, just like Meltzer. It makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy.
Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite. Twitter @Seeing the Elite. If you really want to be in with the crew, in with the most amazing pro wrestling community in the world, tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite gets you the invite to our Discord server. That's tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite. Once again, if you want to become one of our friends, one of our best friends, one of our inner circle, head to patreon.com/Seeing the Elite and subscribe to the boys. Thanks to all of you that have watched the show live, and thanks to our patrons, Adam Dyson, Ale Avoth, Alejandro Diaz, Andrew Gunther, Andrew Garrett, Benjamin Thomas, Bill Laviolette, Billy Richardson, Billy St. John, Chai Latte, Chris Genro, Christian Baltimore, Cody Faig, Elliot Mullenfeld, Gary Rains, James Kennamer, Jim Ross, Joseph Pesicow, Keith Czulno, Kevin Bartlett, Kristan, Mark Morgan, Merman, Omega Lulz, Peter, Risby, Sean Henniger, SMTM, Travis Ulrich, and Tailgate Tiger. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't have really anything else to say before we go, but maybe Jonathan does.
Go watch that Dropkick Murphys replay. It was pretty dope.
It was cool. I felt like the Bruce Springsteen interaction was a bit of a cop-out, but that's me.
Yeah, I think so as well. I felt that was not what the Murphys had intended.
Maybe it wasn't what they intended. It certainly wasn't what they fucking advertised. I know that much. Because they advertised live with the Dropkick Murphys and Bruce Springsteen.
And even if they were doing Springsteen from a remote location, he was going to be doing Dropkick do a song, Springsteen does a song. That's what Ken Casey said, and I guess that something happened.
Didn't end up happening, but I thought it was all right. I thought it was kind of a cool setup for a live show, and hopefully we see more of these in the future but it doesn't look like it because things are beginning to open up now, weirdly. But
I still don't think we're going to see concerts.
I didn't think that we were going to see a lot of things that we're now seeing. So
that's fair. Yeah. Other than that, no, I'm good. Just yeah.
Join us next week. We'll be back with another episode of Seeing the Elite and AEW podcast. Until then, go out and change the world.